5 online dates that went south and eventually turned violent. Makari Gasaway rode his bicycle to a home in Gulfport, Mississippi at around midnight on June 21, 2022, to meet 27-year-old Brushawn Charmaine McClam, whom he had been chatting with online. At some point, after he arrived at the home, he learned that McClam was transgender. Instead of leaving, he started shooting. McClam was hit twice and died. McClam's 21-year-old sister was also hit, but she survived. After the shooting, Gasaway hopped back on his bike and went home. Detectives investigating the senseless crime pulled surveillance footage from dozens of locations. They tracked Gasaway to his apartment and arrested him. At his residence, they recovered the bike, gun, and the clothes worn during the shooting. Gasaway was charged with first-degree murder and aggravated assault. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder, aggravated assault, and tampering with evidence in October 2024. At his sentencing, the judge said, "Why didn't you just walk out?" The judge gave the 22-year-old a 50-year sentence with 20 years suspended. 26-year-old Gerald Pryor met 19-year-old Alexis Hawkins on Instagram, and the two had a date scheduled just before midnight on January 25, 2025. They spent about 2 hours together, but the date went south when a man approached them and opened fire as they sat in Pryor's vehicle in Indianapolis, Indiana. Pryor was found lying in a pool of blood outside his vehicle and later died. Hawkins allegedly fled the vehicle unharmed and messaged several people asking them to pick her up from a place near where the incident occurred. During their investigation, detectives determined that at the same time Hawkins and Pryor were planning their meeting via Instagram, she was chatting with her boyfriend, 18-year-old Brian Winston Jr., and allegedly plotting to rob Pryor. When Hawkins was questioned on February 6th, she conveniently said she couldn't remember that night. She lawyered up once the questioning got too intense. Hawkins and Winston were arrested and charged with murder and robbery resulting in bodily injury. In November 2025, a new suspect was arrested, with police saying Malachi Wells was involved in the robbery plan. All 3 are being held without bond as they await their days in court. Gypsy Rose Blanchard grew up being told by her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, that she had numerous health issues. Dee Dee benefited financially from Gypsy's disabilities. Dee Dee got a home from Habitat for Humanity, and neighbors also helped them. When Gypsy got older, she wanted to date, and in October 2012, Gypsy met Nicholas Godejohn on a Christian singles website. As the years passed, they talked about getting married and even named their future kids. Gypsy paid for Godejohn to come to Springfield in March 2015. They met at a movie theater, and even though it was their first time seeing each other in person, they snuck off to the bathroom for a sexual encounter. That night at the theater, Godejohn also met Dee Dee for the first time, but she didn't like him. Godejohn returned home afterward, and at some point, he and Gypsy started talking about having a baby or killing Dee Dee so they could be together. Eventually, they settled on the murder plot, and Godejohn returned to Springfield on June 10, 2015. After Dee Dee went to sleep, Gypsy let him into the home and gave him a knife, gloves, and other items. Godejohn stabbed Dee Dee 17 times, killing her. He and Gypsy were intimate, stole some money from a safe, and then fled the scene in a cab. Gypsy tweeted, "The is dead," on June 14th. People who saw the post were alarmed and called for a welfare check on Dee Dee and Gypsy. Dee Dee was found dead, and for a short time, people thought Gypsy was in danger. However, she and Godejohn were arrested on June 16th at Godejohn's home in Big Bend, Wisconsin. During interrogation, Godejohn confessed to the murder. Gypsy pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 years. Godejohn took the case to trial, hoping for a second-degree murder conviction, which would have meant a 10-to-life sentence. Gypsy was the first person Godejohn's lawyers called to the stand. She testified about experiencing physical and verbal abuse at the hands of her mother and detailed how she was led to believe she was sick. She admitted that the murder plan was her idea and said she talked him into it. During closing arguments, Godejohn's attorney described him as a low-functioning person with autism. The jury wasn't convinced that Godejohn was manipulated. He was convicted of first-degree murder and armed criminal action in November 2018. He was later sentenced to life without parole plus 25 years. Gypsy served 8 years and was released from prison in 2023. Since then, she has amassed millions of social media followers, published a book, and starred in a reality show. While Gruesome has referred to Gypsy as his soulmate and says his time dating her was the best time of his life, she doesn't feel the same way. In her book, she accused him of violating her, saying the encounter she had with Gruesome after he killed her mother was not consensual. Gypsy's parole conditions forbid her from having contact with Gruesome, and she has stated she has no desire to contact him anyway. Daniel Stearns met Nancy Howery online. While he wanted an exclusive relationship, the divorced mother of 2 wasn't ready to commit to one guy. Stearns couldn't handle it, and on February 15, 2023, the two argued, and Stearns fatally shot Howery. He then dismembered her, burned her body, and then distributed the parts in different locations throughout Palm Bay, Florida. Howery's ex-husband reported her missing on February 18, 2023, after she didn't pick their kids up from school. Investigators learned that Howery spoke with a friend on February 15th and told that friend she was going to meet Stearns. Stearns became a person of interest and was interviewed twice. Detectives knew he was being deceptive, but they didn't have enough evidence to hold him. He was released, and soon law enforcement started watching him. On March 9, 2023, he left his home in the early hours of the morning and went to a wooded area in Palm Bay known as the Compound. He was arrested after authorities observed him attempting to dispose of evidence. Further searches were conducted in that area, and some of Howery's remains were located. Stearns went to trial in October 2025, with the prosecutor saying he killed Howery because she wasn't following his relationship rules. Stearns was convicted of second-degree murder, abuse of a dead human body, and tampering with evidence. The 35-year-old returned to court for sentencing in December 2025 and was given a life without parole sentence for murder, plus 22 years for the additional charges. In October 2022, 17-year-old Dylan Michael Lenz picked up a 17-year-old girl he met on Snapchat and drove to a Walmart parking lot in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. What followed was a chilling assault. He choked her and attacked her with a box cutter. As if that weren't horrifying enough, he let her go, then ran her over multiple times with his SUV. Miraculously, she survived. Lenz was arrested that night and later confessed, saying he was consumed by really bad thoughts. Prosecutors didn't hold back, charging him with attempted first-degree intentional homicide, hit and run, and several other offenses. Despite the seriousness of the case, he was released on $150,000 cash bond and went straight to a treatment facility. In March 2025, the judge ordered him to have a trial by court rather than by jury, but it never came to that. In a deal with prosecutors, Lenz pleaded no contest to attempted first-degree intentional homicide by use of a dangerous weapon. The other charges were dismissed. Lenz returned to court on September 12, 2025, to learn his fate. He was sentenced to 13 years in prison. When he gets out, he will be on extended supervision for 15 years.